You had a time machine so you could experience history firsthand and understand it better. So far, this is impossible, but every day researchers contribute to the understanding of our past. Today we present 10 archaeological and paleontological discoveries of recent years. Are you fascinated by mysterious things and archaeological discoveries? Then give us a thumbs up, subscribe to Hidden Worlds, and join us on our journey. Dinosaur with a duck's beak. In mid-2013, paleontologists found the remains of a dinosaur tail in northern Mexico near the town of General Cepeda. The 5-meter-long fossil tail is thought to be about 72 million years old and is unusually well preserved and likely accounted for about half of the dinosaur's total length. The paleontology team identified the dinosaur to which the tail must have belonged as Hadrosaur, also called a duck-billed dinosaur. The team spent 20 days removing sedimentary rock from the dinosaur's bones, uncovering the 50 vertebrae of the tail completely undamaged. Since complete dinosaur tails are very rarely found, the paleontologists hope this will expand our understanding of this dinosaur family and also allow diseases to be read from the bones. So far, for example, paleontologists have already been able to determine that the dinosaur suffered from tumors and arthritis. 14,000-year-old cave art in Spain. On the 28th of October 2020, Spanish researchers reported ancient rock engravings in the Aizpitati cave system in the Basque country. Depicted are bison and horses, which is typical of Europe but has now appeared for the first time in the Iberian Peninsula. The first engravings were discovered in cave number 5. These were 4 bison that were about 14,000 years old. Overall, the condition of the artworks is unfortunately no longer very good. Nevertheless, the finds are of great importance. For example, a comparison with other cultures revealed an astonishing similarity to the Gravitians, an important archaeological culture of the Upper Paleolithic. In terms of handicrafts, the numerous Venus figurines are particularly well known from this culture. Their style, however, extends mainly over southern France and the Mediterranean region. In northern Spain, this is the first such discovery and indicates a more intensive, sustained exchange and mutual influence for at least 25,000 years earlier than previously thought. The ancient art was found thanks to a study carried out to explain why there are significantly fewer rock paintings in the Basque country than in the rest of Western Europe. In the course of this research, a total of 20 new examples of cave art have been found so far, quadrupling the art already known in the region. Hidden code. Archaeologists mainly focus on the depiction of animals and other creatures in cave paintings. Geometric symbols, for example, tend to be overlooked. The paleoanthropologist Genevieve von Petzinger has specialized in precisely those signs. Such geometric symbols show a change in the mental abilities of our ancestors. No animal other than man can communicate concepts through abstract symbols. The oldest known writing system is the 5,000-year-old cuneiform script from the ancient city of Uruk. However, this is already very complex, so there must have been earlier forms. Von Petzinger documents the signs found and looks for patterns in their temporal and spatial distribution and style. Among the symbols are, for example, lines, dots, zigzag patterns, but also more complicated ladder-like forms. In Europe, she found a total of only 32 signs. Our ancestors likely brought the mental dictionary of signs with them from Africa. The discovery of a 70,000-year-old ochre block engraved with cross-hatching in South Africa fits in with this. On Java, a 500,000-year-old zigzag line was even discovered on a shell. Beginning 40,000 years ago, the signs are found not only individually but also in combinations. However, on cave walls, it's difficult to determine whether they are perhaps just coincidentally next to each other. A red deer tooth necklace from the 16,000-year-old grave of a young woman should now give von Petzinger some information. In fact, the signs on the back of the teeth were partly single and partly in combinations. It can therefore be assumed that the stringing together happened consciously, which meant a great advance for the cultural development of man. Large, mysterious structure. A few years earlier, Angela Mikkel announced the satellite images showed a new structure under the sands of the Sahara. According to her, they were either damaged pyramids or ruins from the time before the flood. Hardly anyone had taken them seriously at the time. Now, however, this could change, because Dr. Vasko Dobrev, who has been investigating an area about 31 kilometers from Giza for 3 decades, made a similar statement in 2019. The affected area around Saqqara is home to the oldest pyramid, and Dr. Dobrev revealed his suspicions that many more may well be hidden beneath the sand. He also believes that another pyramid is hidden on the crest of a flat plateau. He suspects the builder was the pharaoh Userkare, who reigned for no more than 4 years. A pyramid could not have been completed in such a short time, and likely only the foundations were finished. Pyramids of Kush. During the excavation of an archaeological site in northern Sudan, archaeologists discovered between 35 and over 80 pyramids that reveal fascinating connections between the kingdom of Kush that once existed there and ancient Egypt. The structures are about 2,000 years old and of a much smaller size than most Egyptian pyramids. The largest measures only about 6.7 meters in width, and the smallest, which was probably built for the burial of a child, only 75 centimeters. The excavation site at Sedenga belonged at the time to the Empire of Kush, which shared a border first with Egypt and then with the Roman Empire. According to archaeologists, the country's pyramid construction was likely heavily influenced by Egypt and continued for centuries to come. A 50,000-year-old piece of string. In spring 2020, the analysis of a new find was published in the scientific journal Scientific Reports. The new discovery is apparently the oldest cord fragment found to date. As if this were not sensational enough, it's also said to have been made and used by Neanderthals. The artifact, which is about 5 millimeters long and made of tree bark, was found by paleoanthropologist Bruce Hardy in France, attached to a sharply ground flint that was likely used for cutting. The cord may have served to attach a handle. Many people still consider Neanderthals to be primitive, although more and more evidence points against this assumption. The finding of the cord suggests that Neanderthals had extensive knowledge of trees and enough craftsmanship to make a strong cord. In order to collect the fibers, it's not enough to know the right tree. The right season is also important. To make the string, the fibers were first twisted counterclockwise into a thread. 3 of these were then twisted clockwise. This discovery suggests that Neanderthals also used other techniques, the results of which, such as clothing and woven baskets, are now rotten. Until recently, the oldest cord found was from 18th century BC Israel. However, not everyone is convinced by the find. Paleolithic archaeologist Andrew Sorensen said the string was too thin to have been useful. It could also have been accidentally made while rubbing fibers together to make tinder or while removing bark from the stone. 2 shekel weight. Sifting through soil during excavations by the Israel Antiquities Authority and the Western Wall Heritage Foundation revealed a weight from the First Temple period in Jerusalem near the Wailing Wall. The dome-shaped weight, made of limestone and flattened at the bottom, has 3 signs carved on the top, 2 vertical lines for the number 2, and an Egyptian symbol which resembles the Greek gamma and is the abbreviation for the unit of measurement of a shekel. Weighing 32 grams, the find corresponds exactly to today's weight of 2 shekels. Since there were no coins at the time, accuracy was of the utmost importance for trade. Roman building complex. By chance, remains of an ancient building complex were found in the Greek town of Rafina in the 1970s, but systematic excavation work has only been taking place there since 2013. Central to the site is a Roman bath, which had been very large in its first phase in the 2nd century AD, but was reduced in size and increasingly luxurious furnishings in the following century. The most puzzling part of the excavation is a large building measuring 46 by 21 meters, which takes up the entire northeastern area of the site. It was initially interpreted as an early Christian basilica, but this now seems to be outdated. The discovery of wine presses, 2 ceramic kilns, and an oil press indicates a late antique site for the processing of products from the region, which lasted until about the 6th century. Presumably, the goods were stored in the large building, but according to archaeologist Dr. Stylianos Katakis, it's too early to draw definitive conclusions. Lost medieval bridge. 2 years of work led to the discovery in 2020 of one of the most important structures in medieval Scotland. The medieval bridge was discovered in the river Teviot near Ancrum, which according to radiocarbon dating dates from the mid-14th century. This makes it the oldest scientifically tested bridge in Scotland still found in its original position. However, the bridge that spans the river today is no longer the original structure, and so archaeologists had to search for the oak beams in the river to date them. The bridge is of historic and strategic national importance. It's strongly believed to have been crossed by James V in 1526, Mary Stuart in 1566, and James Graham, 1st Marquess of Montrose, in 1645. At high tide, the bridge was likely the only way to cross the river between Howick and Berwick, and was therefore of great importance to travellers. 4,500-year-old DNA. Researchers have found that 100 times more DNA can be extracted from the rocky bone that protects the cochlea than from other bones because of its density. So, a 4,500-year-old skeleton from Rakhigarhi could now answer some questions about India's history. The topic is also politically explosive. One of the questions is whether the Harappa culture was more like the Aryans or the Dravidians. According to the scientific publication on DNA, all developments till modern times in South Asia took place by indigenous people, and Aryan migration did not take place. Furthermore, the DNA of the skeleton was found to be closely related to Iranian ancestry and not at all to steppe ancestry. Languages such as Indo-European are thought to have been spread across Central Asia to India in the early 2nd millennium BC. However, this topic has not been covered in enough detail in the paper. Archaeological finds have always amazed and inspired mankind. They are so diverse and mysterious that they always manage to make us go crazy. But what is it that makes us so excited? It is the unknown, the uncertain, that stimulates our imagination and creativity. The stories behind the finds are often inexplicable and have a depth that we cannot even guess at. However, many finds have become public knowledge and their origins have been explained and a connection made. Some are vaguely attempted to be discussed but will likely never be revealed. However, all finds have one thing in common. They are fascinating and even urge us to want to find out more about the story behind them. Come with us on a journey. We invite you to explore the most mysterious and exciting finds, discoveries, theories, and find out more about them. Join us, form your own opinion, and be curious. Secret tunnels and sunken boats. Blenheim Palace is one of the most beautiful castles in England. It was once built for John Churchill in 1704 after the Battle of the Danube. Winston Churchill was born here in 1874. He is probably John's best-known descendant. At first, this circumstance does not suggest anything unusual. After a huge amount of water was pumped out of the castle, incredible discoveries were made. Large tunnels with graffiti, sunken boats, and much more. The boats could be dated back to 1950, and the graffiti even to 1756. Unbelievable, isn't it? These things were all uncovered after more than 250 years. Dark rooms without windows were even found. In these, there was evidence that people had lived there. There was even evidence of kitchen utensils. The why is not clear. In any case, this fact is quite creepy, because who knows what might have happened in these chambers. Likewise, there are other undiscovered rooms that are still full of water, so it remains to be seen what else Blenheim Palace holds and hides from the world. Ancient meteorite crater. Gold miners in Australia are common and nothing special. However, some of them have made a fabulous discovery, namely a huge meteorite crater. Now you're thinking, sure, that must be the Wolf Creek crater. Well, no, because this newly discovered crater is many times bigger. The crater was discovered near one of the most famous gold mining towns, Ora Banda. Investigations have shown that the diameter of the impact is about 5 kilometers. According to the well-known geologist Jason Myers, the extraterrestrial object responsible for this hole must have been at least 100 meters in size. That is, for comparison, about as long as a football field. Some so-called ray cones were found in the vicinity, which are the clearest indication of the meteorite-like impact. These cones are fragments that do not occur on Earth. It's assumed that the impact must be about 100,000 years old. 200 skeletons. The headline alone suggests something macabre, especially when the skeletons in question were discovered under a French supermarket. They were found because the supermarket was being renovated and refurbished. The owner of the shop said the market was built on part of the cemetery of an old hospital. The gruesome finds was investigated. It was found that all remains of the people found must have died at about the same time, also because of the degree of decomposition. All bodies were buried in a neat arrangement and separated into women, men, and children. The mass grave is likely due to a pandemic in the 17th century. Ancient Roman mosaic floor. In Verona, Italy, an amazingly well-preserved mosaic floor was discovered underground. In 1922, a villa from the Roman period was found there. This was explored and investigated, but after a while it was literally left lying around. Time passed and the geologists returned and were blown away by what they found. A few meters below the vineyard north of Verona, the almost perfectly preserved soil was brought to light. It's believed that the soil dates back to around the 3rd century AD, an insanely long time, considering how well preserved the mosaic is. Such a find was searched for a long time in vain, and now it has finally been discovered. Here, once again, it's proven how the ancient Romans shaped the historical development of mankind. Amazing and incredible at the same time. What a discovery! The discovery of Richard III. In 2012, Richard III was found under a car park. DNA tests have unequivocally confirmed that it must be Richard who fell at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485. In 2013, the University of Leicester finally proved the unbelievable. The skeleton was immediately transported to Leicester Cathedral, where it was honourably placed. The descendants of Richard III wanted to transfer the remains to York for the sake of justice. After much back and forth, petitions and court decisions from the highest authorities, the remains remained in Leicester and were laid out there. 500 years after his death, Richard III has finally found his resting place. What are the chances of making such a find under a car park? Fossils from the Ice Age. Finding fossils also means discovering ever new dimensions of size and perhaps never knowingly existing creatures. One of the largest mammals that ever lived on our planet is the mammoth. Hardly any usable remains of the animal have been found so far, but in Los Angeles, a sensational find was in the offing because 2 complete skeletons of mammoths were found here. The tusks alone had an incredible length of about 1 meter. The animals died out about 10,000 years ago. How fascinating that the remains were discovered considering this time span. Especially nowadays, when genetic engineering and cloning are far advanced in science, such excavations are of elementary importance. Who knows, maybe one day prehistoric elephants will walk our planet again. Accidental sensational discoveries. The best things happen spontaneously, so they say. So it is apparently with archaeological finds, for groundbreaking discoveries exist that were never actually intended. Roman railway workers have discovered a so-called aqueduct, which is a water pipe of the kind built by the ancient Romans. It was discovered at the end of 2016 and dates back to 312 BC. It was also important to find out exactly how advanced the Romans already were at the time. It's also provided circumstantial evidence of exactly how the Romans lived and supplied themselves water. To date, this uncovering is the oldest aqueduct that has been excavated. Now part of this find can be admired in an Italian museum. The Lost Egyptian Temple. Egyptian culture, with its sphinxes and pyramids, has always attracted the interest of mankind. Myths and legends entwine around the stories behind them. A temple was built for King Ptolemy IV almost 2,200 years ago, which has now been found. The temple was found in Shekel. Hieroglyphs, sarcophagi, inscriptions, and much more were discovered in the construction. The pharaoh is said to have ruled Egypt from 221 to 204 BC. He was the 4th pharaoh of his dynasty. A total of 8 mummies of the family were found in the object. Finds and parts of the temple can soon be examined and admired in a museum, the largest museum in the world. Creepy and mysterious Egyptian culture, but it does attract interested people around the globe. Soon, new discoveries of the captivating history can be revered again. Roswell Incident. Aliens is the key word here. Even today, reports of alleged sightings are revealed daily. Hundreds of sightings pelt the authorities every day. One of the most famous incidents to this day is the one in Roswell. In 1947, an unidentified flying object crashed in Roswell in July. The United States Army reported a flying saucer. This caused a sensation and furor. Even today, people talk about the Roswell legend. As the event attracted mass media interest and onlookers, an exclusion zone was set up around the site, and the previous statement was revoked. Suddenly, there was talk of a Russian weather balloon that was supposed to have crashed there. Kind of puzzling, isn't it? Later, the US Air Force revealed that it must indeed have been parts and sensors of a weather balloon. UFO and alien theories were dismissed as baseless and fabricated, but myths still surround the legendary event and speculation continues. Who knows, maybe it wasn't a weather balloon that came down near Roswell. Will we ever know with 100% probability? The salt in the soup. Such discoveries, finds and myths, as they have just been called, are the stories that make life interesting. Legends and sagas stimulate our thinking and bring us joy. What would everyday life be without these exciting, controversial and interesting stories? Right, dull and boring. So let's be honest, we are grateful for every story, for all such finds and myths, because we all love to rack our brains and puzzle over what's behind them. They are the salt in our soup. We all somehow try to explain these things in a more or less plausible way. It's precisely the discussions and opposing views that bring the fire into the story and make us perk up. Therefore, we are happy about all new discoveries and look forward to getting our grey cells moving again soon, thinking, reflecting, and theorizing. None of us like to be alone. When you walk down a dark street at night and there's no one around you, you feel uncomfortable. But when we talk about abandoned, mysterious places in this list, we go one step further. We are talking about mysterious places that no one wants to enter. There's a reason for that. There are often stories behind these places that give you instant goosebumps. Some mysteries still surround these places today. In any case, you can be sure, when you are lying in bed or relaxing on the sofa, always remember that there are also places in the world where things are different, and there is a big difference between a cozy place where you are alone and a creepy, deserted place where you feel abandoned. The following video presents 10 examples from the latter category. The AlWukha scrapyard. Doha is a beautiful city in Qatar. Only a few kilometers away from the modern city, however, lies something that is not beautiful at all. It's the AlWukha scrapyard. It's located in the middle of the desert, which creates a feeling of loneliness and abandonment. However, you are not really alone, because a huge junkyard keeps you company. For kilometers, as far as the eye can see, broken vehicles line up neatly. The sight leads to an unsettling feeling in your stomach. There is not a single person to be seen anywhere. Instead, you look at destroyed cars that are no longer in use and have been left behind in the desert. You'd almost rather walk around somewhere alone between dunes instead of having this car graveyard near you. The St. Nicholas Fortress. If you take a look at the St. Nicholas Fortress while you are in the air, the structure looks impressive. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site and was built in Croatia many centuries ago to keep Turkish boats out of the harbour. The fortress is a popular attraction that draws tourists year after year. So why is it in this list of abandoned places? Because there have been no tourists there for several years. The St. Nicholas Fortress is going through a major renovation phase, which is why the otherwise bustling place has been deserted for some time. When such an old building on the water is suddenly empty, you definitely don't want to be there. Standing completely alone in these old walls, knowing about the history, many wars, and corpses, there are nicer places to spend your time. The Gavavitsa Memorial Park. This memorial park is a memorial to the victims of the fascist wars in the former Yugoslavia. However, the site has more or less fallen into oblivion and is accordingly abandoned and in poor condition. Such memorial sites should be, at least to a small extent, something beautiful. Of course, there is always sadness involved, but at least there is a place to remember the numerous victims. This memorial, however, is one of those you want to leave immediately. Old, creepy stone pillars dominate the scenery, and the knowledge of the deceased people and especially children who were cruelly murdered in the war gives you an unpleasant feeling, for many of them were executed at the site of the memorial. So perhaps it would be better to leave this memorial as a resting place and leave the souls of the departed in peace forever. The abandoned Russian Navy Center. We can't really think of much to say about this abandoned Navy center except we wouldn't enter it under any circumstances, and whoever took all those pictures deserves our respect. Even from the outside, the center looks threatening. The large satellite gives an idea of the important signals that were received and sent here in the old days. Inside, however, it doesn't look any better. In the meantime, the surrounding vegetation has taken possession of all the rooms. Old, rust-eaten machinery and equipment dominate the picture, as do construction and technical plans and many elements that are no longer identifiable. Whatever was done here certainly didn't serve the purpose of better broadcasting in Russian cities. And that is the crux of the matter. As if the deserted atmosphere were not enough, as a visitor you are tormented from the very first second by the clear thought of what, how, and why. Salpo Reggia. There, in the middle of the dense forests of the Carpathians, lies the former Dacian capital and one of the oldest, most mysterious places in Romania. The name, Salpo Reggia, only adds to the mysterious ambience of this deserted place. More than 2 millennia ago, it was considered an important part of the Dacian defense system to keep enemies away. Today, Reggia is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and attracts tourists and researchers again and again. But most of the time it's very empty here, and there's likely a reason for that. Do you really want to be in this place? A lot of blood was shed here too. Besides, all the pillars, seats and other fragments of stone make a creepy, strange impression. Like all places created only for war, you won't be very keen to visit this one to walk across the field alone. The abandoned bunkers of Salpo Line. Okay, so slowly the goosebumps get stronger and stretch all over your body. Nobody enjoys bunkers. The same goes for the creepy bunkers of Salpo Line. These were built by the Finns in 1940 in the middle of the war. A bunker system of over 700 underground structures stretches 1,200 kilometers through the country. Not all of them can be visited, but some of them can be walked through. A look at these pictures makes you feel quite different. You don't really know what you will encounter in the bunkers, but such places are predestined to be haunted or to harbor haunting creatures. With every step you take, you feel the sweat leave your body and fear take over. So we'd better stay away from here and move on quickly. The Blue Ghost Tunnel. The Canadian Blue Ghost Tunnel is one of the first internet sensations to go viral many years ago because of a teenager. At the time, a Canadian teenager kept a blog in which he depicted that the tunnel was haunted. To this day, the tunnel attracts onlookers and parapsychologists who want to get to the bottom of the truth. Many of them report that there is a strange blue mist in the underground tunnel that appears and disappears from time to time. Many visitors have also run screaming from the tunnel after feeling bumps from nowhere or hearing faint voices. Would you like to go in there? The fact is, the Blue Ghost Tunnel is no longer used for train traffic, but at most as a place for ghosts, mysteries, and other creepiness. By the way, the young man from Canada disappeared from the scene at some point and was never seen again. His homepage has been offline for a long time. The Anping Treehouse. This treehouse in Anping once served as a warehouse and bears witness to another time when trees still had a much more important cultural and economic significance. Can you imagine that boxes of products were stored here and people went in and out? Today, it's no longer like that, but there is still something mystical about this treehouse. It's not as creepy as some of the other places on this list and veers more into the mysterious. It's impressive how the tree has grown around the building and made it almost a part of itself, even destroying parts of it to make room for its own branches. It's a reminder of how willful trees are and almost seems as if the tree has never recovered from the strain, although it has adapted and is now united with the treehouse. It's not for nothing that tourists like to visit this very unusual place regularly. The Fire Tower. This fire tower is located on Catholic Hill in Helena, Montana, USA, and as the name suggests, it was built as a watchtower at the time. Whoever stood on the tower had the great responsibility of detecting any spreading fire at an early stage. And this was necessary at the time, as the city was plagued and afflicted by many fires. Even today, the fire tower still stands and is considered a landmark of the town, which can be seen in many coats of arms and on picture postcards. However, it's meant more as a reminder of worse times and to commemorate the many victims from the times of fire. Therefore, it is not a beautiful symbol but a warning sign that the people of Montana take seriously to this day. When you see the fire tower perched alone on the hill, having survived it all, goosebumps immediately return. The World Discoverer. The World Discoverer is a ship that has been left behind. The passengers on this damaged and now half-sunken ship were evacuated, but the cruise ship itself can still be inspected just off the Solomon Islands. Why is no one taking care of the disposal? This is not quite so simple. Numerous companies have already tried, but then found that the ship can no longer be moved. It's too fused with the sea. If one were to try to maneuver it, it would tear to pieces and cause even more damage. Therefore, it's likely that this creepy, abandoned ghost ship will remain in its current location for quite some time. Experts assume that it will only disappear when it has decomposed enough due to the humidity, and therefore dissolution processes begin. How long that will take is anyone's guess. These were 10 abandoned, creepy, mysterious, but partly also impressive places that are now temporarily or permanently deserted. Did we promise too much? How often did it give you goosebumps? Next time you're driving alone on a country road, walking down a dark alley at night, or otherwise eking out your existence in solitude, just think back to these places and be glad you're there and not here. Did you already know some of these places? Do you know of any other abandoned places we left out? What did you find particularly creepy, impressive, or fascinating? Let us know in the comments. We're looking forward to hearing what you think.